your sculpture.
Hello. So today we're going to swap things up a bit. Sharon's going to take over the mic.
Hello, this is Sharon
And
Griffin. I'm going to ask Michelle to talk to her about sculpture.
Yeah, she's going to ask me some
I am.
questions. And because after we came off a session that we just recorded together, I started to open up a little bit and get a bit vulnerable about this piece that I made 15 years ago. And Sharon said, you should record this. So we're hopped back on, and that's what we're going to do.
I really, really want to hear about your sculpture, Michelle. I really think there's something here that we could dig a bit more deeper into.
Yeah.
There's something that is you're holding on to. I don't know what it is, but there's something that there's about this sculpture that I'd really like to know more about it.
Yeah, because we were just talking about how sometimes we get in our own way with making art, or we convince ourselves that we can't make art because we haven't got this purpose, or this hasn't happened. We create all these constraints and make it so complex.
Yeah.
And so this might be hiding some of the discoveries.
The constraints of making.
Yes.
Why don't we make it?
Yeah.
Why don't we make that piece of work, even though we'd really want to?
Yeah.
What is it that we're not seeing? What is our motivation behind it?
I feel like there's a part of us that just stops ourselves from letting go, just really just letting go.
Yeah.
And
absolutely
too much emphasis on where it's going. Will this make me money? Will it go here? Will someone else like this? Will I get represented? Will it go into this gallery? Will it do this? Will
Overthinking. Don't do it.
And then that can really enhance the process, but it can also de-enhance or get in the way of the process.
Yeah.
And so the sculpture.
I'm itching to know about it. I want to know.
So years ago, I had a massive break from art. And the reason that I had that break from art was because I failed my GCSE in art. And as soon as I got that result, I was like, I'm not making art again, because there's no point. I'm not very good at making it. So what's the point? There isn't a point, is there? So I left it, and I didn't make art then until probably 10 years later. And so 10 years on, I was like, why am I not making art? And it was like the floodgates had opened because it had been so long. So I was trying everything. I was signed up over a period of time. There was a long time I was in my own way because I felt inferior to other people. I started to hang around with this guy who was a painter, and I used to be really nasty to him because I felt intimidated by him because he could paint and I wanted to do what he was doing. And so I could feel myself getting defensive around him. And I didn't like that part of myself. And I thought, why am I so angry? But I was angry because I wanted to be this creative being. And I didn't know how to do it. But then slowly and surely started to do courses and classes. And I did a drawing class, textiles, painting, watercolors, acrylics. I was just trying everything and anything. And then once those floodgates opened, I was like, giving me everything related to art.
Everything.
Yeah. No. And then I went to uni and I took that sabbatical from work. And then in uni, we were doing, it was the taster bit where you do your foundation and you taste a bit of glass and you taste it, not literally, through your hands, not your mouth. Ceramics was one of them. And I remember in the ceramics studio, they just said, make anything. And a lot of people were quite intimidated by that. And a lot of people were starting really small.
Yeah.
I got the biggest piece of clay that I could find, and it was on my table, probably about half a meter. And everyone was laughing. That's me all over though, like go big or go home. I wanted to start with something massive, and all my work actually usually is big.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start, and I just got this big slab, and there it was, just this big rectangular block of clay. And then part of the process was go and have a look for inspiration. And gather some starting points, which is what you teach and Make Your Mark. And so I gathered, I can't remember exactly, but it was definitely inspired by Under the Sea. I was really interested in organic shapes. I just really loved moving, flowing, wavy shapes. So I was really interested in that at the time. And I had those printed out by my side, faced with this big, massive block of clay, and just started to get my hands in there and shaping and cutting bits out. And it was really interesting.
Can we see it while you're...
Yeah, so people listening to the audio, we'll put a picture of it in the show notes. But it's a very tactile piece and has lots of orifices and holes. And you talked earlier about pathways, and it's moving and flowing. And it is a bit like a horn.
It's really interactive, I've got to say.
It does like you'd be using it as
it's a real interactive, three-dimensional piece of art, which is organic and full of texture and holes.
Undulated.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that word. Undulated surfaces.
Got movement.
So these were key words actually when I was making it, you know, organic, wavy, undulated, and free-flowing. But so I was doing lots of other things at the same time, and ceramics was, I think, something that we dropped into every week. And I remember being very, very excited about going back to ceramics so I could pick up this piece. And I would actually stay late. People would end up leaving the pottery. I would stay late to work on this piece. I was absolutely in it. I just remember that excitement of going back to the pottery so I could be connected with this piece again. And I felt really detached when I wasn't with it. I felt like I missed it. And I remember being excited, like a pottery day, and I can get back with my thing. And I was in the class as well, not connected with anyone else. I remember that I'd be in this pottery class all day, not talking to anybody, just in this piece, involved in it, shaping it. I was getting obsessed with how to attach these orifices and feeling it, shaping it. I think a lot of it I was consciously thinking, but also, like you've said before, the clay will just take you on that journey. And even when you've talked to me about clay for years, I'd never thought about this piece. It's really so weird. So this whole story is crazy because so connected to it. Then I learned about, I've got to hollow this out because it won't fire, because it was a big, thick, dense piece when I was making it. And so I was learning about, if I want this to go into the fire, and I'm going to have to hollow it out. So I was learning all like the technical bit, but then also the whatever this was becoming at the same time. And so trying to make this technically work as well as what I wanted it to feel. And so anyway, when it came to finishing this piece, and they were like, you know, you've got to start wrapping this up now, because it was over a 6-week period.
Yeah.
And I was really devastated that this was coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I was 100%. It was a massive therapy for me. I can almost feel the tears now building up in my eyes, because this was doing something more for me than I ever realized at the time. And then it went off to the firing, and I know how you feel. And I was like waiting by the door going, did it make it? Did it make it? And it did. And I think this has just had one biscuit firing. I don't think it's had two.
This looks like it's been high fired, but in one, just one. Taken up straight.
That's right. Okay. And so then I went off and did other things, and doing my degree, we went off and did painting, drawing, and of course I loved it all at that point, and I really loved textiles, and I loved everything about art making. So when I remember doing ceramics again later. This is interesting. I forgot all of this. But what I then started to do was something completely the opposite. And I started to try and make a geometric torso. And I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't in it. It was constructing. It was trying to piece things together. It kept falling apart. It was geometric hard lines. And I definitely wasn't in that piece. I enjoyed making it. So I'd lost then the feeling of ceramic. And I kind of lost this. I'd completely forgotten about this because I've done all these different other art things. And then I started to fine tune towards textiles and painting. And that's what I started to specialize in as my degree started to get, more narrow and you focus. It was towards painting. And so left three-dimensional work behind on the shelf in my brain, gone, pick you up again later, but never did. And then, so then that became my world then, painting and the ceramics. And then I've dabbled because Sharon, I've known Sharon for at least 10 years now, and Sharon's a potter. So this is the part of the story that totally is crazy for me.
Yeah. Because... And I've never seen any of your work that is clay. And I come into your house today, and there's like a piece of clay. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What's that? Who's made that? Oh, that's mine from something I made 15 years ago. How do I not know this piece of work? It's a fantastic piece of work.
It's really strange. And hearing Sharon over the years talk about clay and how connected Sharon is when she makes, and it's that tactile and being one with the clay, and hearing that and hearing Sharon talk about that, it's never, I understand it, but it never reminded me of this piece. And then I've been in Sharon's pottery and played a bit with clay, but again, it was the wheel thinking.
Yeah.
I wasn't lost in it. So I potted around. But then this piece ended up just being chucked in the shed. And it's been chucked in the shed for the last 8 years. Because that's how long I've been in this house, and it went in the shed as soon as I moved into this house. So it's been 8 years lying in a shed with paint cans put on top of it, deck chairs chucked in. I literally pulled this from underneath a pile of stuff. There'd been a leak in there, paint had leaked. All this stuff has been happening in that shed for 8 years on top of this piece.
Well,
and forgotten about.
That's what clay is. Though clay, once it gets fired, the clay molecules vitrify, and it stays like that forever. So it's a scientific change. If you want to learn about culture, you look at the clay. You don't look at the painting, because we've been using this clay material for all of his story and her story throughout our lives. This is an ancient knowledge that you've used. Such an interesting piece of work, Michelle.
But I think what the interesting bit for me though is the fact that I'd lost this. So become so detached, and that's what I think.
You said about can I ask you some questions? Can I ask you some questions?
I can't help myself just stop and talk.
It's about, for me, when I hear you and look at you touching and holding your sculpture that you made, that you had this relationship with, because you obviously did. We can't stop stroking it. You can see the marks that you've made. They're small, kind of gentle, strokey, working through marks, attaching, and real complex shapes that are all fitted together. It takes you on a little journey, from an observing point of view. Takes you on that journey. You can see it from all different angles. It's really interesting. But when you say, you come to this clay with a connection, it's almost like you're saying that you're coming to the material that you're using. Doesn't matter what material it is, but in this case, it's clay with your body and mind, and you're telling it your story, and it's hearing you through the touch, through the material, through that stroking, through that manipulation. And you're letting it speak, and it's mirroring your actions, and it's mirroring your emotion, which is non-verbal. This takes us right back pre-verbal womb. So when we're in the womb, when we're growing, it's that kind of knowledge. And then when we're babies, we're born and our brains develop. That's non-verbal. It's how do we express? We express through eye contact and connectivity through the primary caregiver, and all of this stuff that that is in us. Everything goes back to the womb. Everything goes back to the child. It all comes from there. So now you've got this experience, in my opinion, my very humble opinion. Maybe is it this reconnection with you back to the non-verbal, back through the physical touch, back through the tangible materialistic experience of reconnection with and this clay is great. It's like, this is why people get drawn to it, and they're so grounded, and they're so like, oh yeah, everything's fine, a bit hippie like almost. You watch the Great Pottery Throwdown, and everyone's really nice because they're all grounded and they have fun, and because they've got the clay. That's what this clay community is. So maybe it's this, is it this body connection, this feeling, this movement? We talk about what the body needs. We've all got a body. Do we, we obviously need it to be intellectually stimulated, but we also need to listen to the other parts of us that aren't being at the surface. And maybe, sometimes these stories come up for us later on when we're ready to hear it or to listen, at a different time, when we're in a different energy or a different person, because everything changes. I think you told me that everything changes, nothing stays the same.
No, it doesn't. But how peculiar that this piece, I just was clearing out the shed and I literally picked it up and I felt, I can't even describe the way I felt. It just felt like I'd picked a part of myself up off the floor.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, how can something lost?
Like I picked it up and it was like part of me that I just picked up off the floor. I'm going to get emotional now. Like, how have I forgotten you? And picked it up and thought, I don't know, there was just, but like you say, I've picked up this piece many times and not felt that. So it's just so strange how right now it's speaking to me. This piece is speaking to me for a reason.
Maybe, is it because there's some change in your life now?
I don't know.
And now now you need it? Is it that?
I don't know, but I was transported instantly to that moment where I made it, and that feeling of being so connected with the material and how I lost myself. So what my word this year actually is flow. Like being in flow. Have you seen the film Soul?
No.
Oh my gosh, you're joking.
I'm not.
Oh my gosh,
I've got time for watching films.
You've got to watch Soul.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen Soul, it's a kids animated movie, but it's beautiful because there's a moment in the film, and it's about a musician, and the musician is in the zone, and they depict it in the most beautiful way where he's in the zone and he's playing the piano and he's transported and there's no worries, there's no and that, I think, for me, I was in the zone, right, really, when I made this. And so I think picking that piece up off the floor transported me back to that moment, but I honestly felt like I was in this piece, which is crazy, isn't it? But it's not crazy, because that's what art is. There's a piece of us in all of our artwork. But I could really, but I'd never seen that before. And I picked it up off the floor and I was like, I see you. I see, and I see myself in this. And so picked it up off the floor. And I think this year is about being in flow. And so I'm probably really noticing things where I've been in flow. And that's the thing, isn't it? When you hone in on how you want to feel, and this year I want to be more in flow, I'm noticing now things around me where I felt in flow. Maybe that's why it's speaking to me right now.
A rediscovery of a reconnection with Michelle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing. We have we talk about materials. Let's talk about materials just for a minute, if that's okay.
Love to.
We have two different worlds for me. One of them is a virtual world, and the other one is a materialistic world. One of them, it speaks to me on in my mind and in my my intellectual and when I'm writing, or when I'm on virtual reality, or when I'm talking to people, or I'm messaging, connecting with others. That's a really great tool to have. And in the other world, which is the real world, whatever real is, this tangible experience of being in a human existence in a body. I surround myself with things, with stuff, with things that remind me of stuff, and it takes me on a little journey, not just necessarily a photograph, but something it's a different experience when you touch something than when you just look at it. For me, there is a difference. We have cold, hot, we have textures, we have shapes, forms, we have surfaces, we have smooth, we have all of those things. We also have images that we can look at. We have smells. We have this like sensory experience when we're using three-dimensional things, but they're everywhere. We have things that are passed down from us from generations. We have, jewelry. We have objects like a favorite cup that no one's allowed to use because it'll get broken else, or that was broken by the dog that wagged its tail, and that was in auntie so and so's house, and then 1800s passed down. We have all of these things around us which give us act as a kind of a connection to the past and a connection with place. And for me, it feels safe. I feel safe when I've got my things around me. I feel like I'm home when I've got the things that take, a reminder of who I was, how I'm connected with my family and friends. And it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel like I'm part of something that's not just about me, but it's almost like an anchor to, to my life. And maybe that's why we have things around. We're talking about this clay as well earlier. And clay is, I'm just going to borrow your cup? Yeah. Okay, thanks. Right. We still use this as a vessel. So this clay has gone through this process, and we talk about process as well, this journey with first the clay is wet and it's a great big shape, and then you carve into it and you spend weeks carving into it, and then you put it into the fire, and then it could all blow up and explode any minute, and then it makes it so you trust in the process and your journey, and it could go tits up at any time. Like seriously, it can just explode. And then once it comes out of the fire, out of the kiln, you can drop it on the floor and it breaks, it smashes, and it doesn't ever go back together again, ever. Unless you kintsugi, whatever it is called. When you get that lovely gold paste, Japanese gold paste, you put it back together and acknowledge the memory of it. Yeah. And that adds to the value that it's imperfect. But we still use the same vessel, cup. It's the same design that we've been using since people started to think, oh, we could put this clay, the mud, into the fire and we could use it as a pot to cook our food in. Yeah. We're still using the same vessel, the same design. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I love that.
On. Gosh.
Ancient knowledge.
Yeah.
What an amazing story. Thank you, Michelle. Loved hearing about your work.
It got me thinking, before we wrap up, about how these constraints that we put on ourselves it's just interesting. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I didn't go back to clay, because I'm focusing on painting, I'm focusing on this, and put that thing on the shelf and forgot about it. And so I think there's lots of reasons why we do this, but one of the big things we've been talking about recently, though, is the constraints that we put on ourselves. And I wanted to start making art again and sculpture, but I reached out to Sharon and I said, I really want to do this, but I'm struggling with it because I know that I'm not going to sell it. I don't want to sell it. And I know if someone came to me for advice, what I'd say to them, but when it's yourself, it's very different. Yeah. And I was noticing that, I want to start doing the sculpture and I really want to connect again and I want to be in flow. But there was this part of me, the negative committee, the brain, that was going, but why would you bother doing that? Do you really want to fill up a studio full of sculpture and then it's going to become a burden and you'll feel guilty and maybe you'll have to have a show then because you want to get rid of it. And so I could almost feel that part of me just going, just don't do it, because it's just going to cause all these issues in the long run of having work and you don't know where it's going, and then this guilt and pressure because there's stuff being made and you're not doing anything with it.
Well, why does the world need more stuff?
Why does the world need more stuff?
Yeah. Don't need more stuff. All of these things that come into place.
The guilt. Yeah. And so, and I know the answers, and we all know the answers deep down. I think that's why we have to talk about it, though, because even though we know why art makes us feel so amazing, and this picking this up after 15 years and feeling a part of myself on the floor and how emotional that is, that's why we make.
Yeah.
And
make for yourself.
And we have to be reminded of this, because we do put these constraints on ourselves. I work with so many people, hear these stories day in, day out of the fear that people have around making and letting go and just making something for the pure joy of it, especially if you're selling. And you were saying this to me, you know, when I reached out to Sharon and I said, I feel this guilt. It's insane. And Sharon said, you know, I remember you saying to me, I feel it too, because I'm selling. And so when I now make, you know, there is this push-pull sometimes, isn't there, around, well, just playing for the sake of it isn't making me the cash. It's not going to put the work in the show.
Yeah.
And it sits on the shoulder of people, even though you know,
Yeah,
because you've got a whole course on Make Your Mark. You know the reasons around play and how important it is. But we still have these parts of ourselves, don't we, that take over.
Yeah.
That tell us incorrect, false information.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the motivation, you know, where do we get it? What is it?
Yes,
What motivates
motivation.
us?
Yeah.
It's, you know, if I don't have I know my methods now enough that if I don't have an exhibition lined up, I won't get up my arse and actually do the work. I need that to just give me the motivation. I need that.
Yeah.
I need that anchor to make me do it, because that's the motivation. Also, motivations like I need to pay my bills. So I need to make certain amount of like sculptures that I know I've got an audience for, that I know that will help me pay my bills. That's great. And then part of that will be, and now I just need some freedom, some playtime. I'll go and go and do a show, or you know, go and have a look at some inspiration from somewhere and find my motivation. But why is it that I don't really make the stuff that I really want to make? Oh, then now we're talking.
Yeah.
Why do I not just make it?
Yeah, the stuff we really want
Why
to
do I
make.
put that constraint on there? No, because it won't sell. No, because of this. No, because of this.
Yeah. If we're all honest, there's probably art in us that we just want to unleash, but we're too afraid.
My biggest fear, you know, my biggest fear is that people will hate me. People won't like me.
I think that is a big
It's
one.
a huge,
being judged.
People won't, being judged.
Because if you imagine yourself living on an island with nobody else on the island, what would you make? And it would be the make you would make for yourself.
Yeah,
because you know you'd make based on what you feel.
Go and wild, crazy, stabby stuff.
Yeah,
it's a little bit.
Yeah.
A bit, But then people are like, oh no, I don't like that.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one to ponder, and we were talking about this when I reached out to Sharon, and also these constraints that we see our friends putting on themselves around, you know, if I don't have a show, then I can't make, you know, I haven't got that purpose. But then also we've got the flip side of friends that are churning out work, but not doing anything with it, just not taking that step. We've all got all these constraints that we've put on ourselves. And so,
but the flow, that's my word as well this year.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we got
synchronized.
We're going with the flow.
That's good. It's good that we've got harmonizing words.
Yeah, it's very good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Process. It's all about the process. It's not the end. It's just the process. You're on a journey, this pathway. Go with it.
I think a lot of this, to wrap up, for me, is about really being in tune with my intuition and really noticing when something feels right from within here and not in here necessarily. Because I think when I'm trying to make the decisions about, should I do this sculpture course? Should I do this clay? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I focus on United Art Space? Should I focus on the hub? Should I, you know, it's, and the head starts to take over, and we've got the bills to pay, and this and this and this can cloud sometimes the intuition, and we know the answers and that feeling inside where you think, oh my gosh, gosh, I feel excited about this. This feels good. That's when you know you're onto something. And it can feel scary though, like you say, if you're pushing yourself out there. But that's the head taking over.
Yeah.
So it's really, for me, one of the big lessons is to use the intuitive part that isn't worrying about what people think. Yeah. It's, this feels right. I want to go on this sculpture course that I'm doing at the weekend, and it feels exciting. And and that's intuition.
Yeah. And learning how to fail. It's okay to fail, make the fails.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon,
Thank you.
Unearthing some lessons from the sculpture.
I love your sculpture.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See you soon. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Bye.